Okay, welcome, Robert.
Well, first and foremost, let me thank John and Carol for opening up their home to me for this campaign. It means a great deal to me. One, because of the generosity, but also because, frankly, if I get to the council and I act up, everybody's going to look at you and blame you. So you jumped out on faith with a level of confidence, but I want to make sure your confidence is rewarded, and I do appreciate it. My name is Robert White, and I am a candidate for DC Council at large. I'm running, honestly, because there are two DCs, and my family story here in DC very much tells this tale of two cities. I'm a fifth-generation Washingtonian, and my father, Robert Sr., struggled a great deal in this city. One morning, when I was 8 years old, my dad had to come into my room and tell me that my mother, who was suffering from breast cancer, didn't make it home that night. 1 month later, we were on New Hampshire Avenue, and a truck came off of 495, hit a car, sent that car airborne, and landed on top of our car, splitting my skull, collapsing my mouth, almost killing me. Now, that put, as you can imagine, a very heavy burden on my dad. But he was worried about me and my education. So with a high school diploma, my father stretched and scraped every single dollar to send me to a Catholic school, because he believed that would be the one thing that would give me more and better opportunity than he had. And so I struggled in school for a while, but with his support, with the support of my community, I pushed through. I graduated from Archbishop Carroll High School, from St. Mary's College of Maryland, and from American University Law School, which is where I met my very patient and incredible wife, Christy. I should note that, one, she is amazing. Not only is she a very talented attorney at the Securities and Exchange Commission, but she is with me every evening, every weekend, late into the nights and early in the morning before she goes to work, making sure that we make this thing work for the city. All the while nurturing our soon-to-be-born first child, a little girl who is not even come yet, but has managed to wrap me around her finger already. So I am thankful and grateful to have such a supportive wife. But you know, what's unique about my story and where DC is right now is that after we graduated law school, we chose to make DC our home. We could have gone anywhere we wanted to start our family, but we decided that this was home, where we wanted to invest. But not everybody in my family has been so lucky. Some took different paths, and now I'm the only college graduate in my family, and the only one who doesn't make an hourly wage, which also means I'm one of the last members of my family who can still afford to live in DC. My father, my brother, my aunts and uncles have been priced out of the city that they love, seeing that there are two DCs. And what else do these two DCs look like? They look like a city where we have the largest percentage of college degree holders in the nation. But we also have a significant number of returning citizens, and my brother is among them. We see prosperity and development everywhere we look, but somehow still see hopelessness in the eyes of people who hoped for so long and suffered through our worst days just to make it to this very resurgence that we're seeing now. But they feel like they're being shown the door. This is a city where schools in some neighborhoods continue to thrive, but schools in other neighborhoods continue to struggle. I am running for the council with a mission and a vision to bridge the divides in this city. And I believe that I can do it. And I also believe that I can pull residents from every area of this city together to make sure we do reach a day of shared prosperity. Because in a city that is doing so well, we cannot have so many people being left behind. There's no excuse for it. But what that requires is strong members of our council who are focused on serving our city with integrity. People running for office not to be somebody, but to do something. Because everybody in DC knows that there is an old way of doing business here. And folks want somebody and will not come together until they see someone with their own eyes who is serious about changing the way that we do business, putting an end to pay-to-play politics, to corruption in this city. And I gotta tell you those unfortunate traits are characterized by nobody better than Vincent Orange, who has been in this seat for far too long, who thinks that the city is doing just fine when I keep reminding him debate after debate that I'm looking with my eyes and I am seeing that we are not doing just fine. Now, the beautiful thing about DC right now, as opposed to 20 years ago when I grew up here, is that people are coming here finding that they love it and that they want to stay here, put down roots here, raise families here. That is an incredible thing. But they won't stay here unless the schools are strong, unless they can afford to live here, and unless we have careers in this city and we are putting people to work. Every single community in DC is looking for these same things. So we have to have someone who is dead set on this type of service. There's been too much division in our city. There's been too much self-interest and corruption on our council, and it's time for new leadership. It is time for new leaders with additional skills to fill in these gaps and move our city in a better direction. I have strong experience that I'm ready to bring to hit the ground running. I'm an attorney. I actually intended to spend the first half of my legal career in private practice, but I was finishing up a clerkship and found an opportunity in Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton's office to join her as her legislative counsel. And I saw in that an opportunity to do work that I would find fulfilling and to give back to the city that I love so much. And so I spent a majority of my career with her. Most recently, I worked for Attorney General Carl Racine, who asked me to come in with him when he was elected to help him establish the Office of Community Outreach under the Attorney General's office. In my very little bit of free time, I actually created our neighborhood civic association in Brightwood Park in Ward 4. I actually still serve as president because I can't find anybody crazy enough to take the reins. And anybody who does civic work knows how that goes. Anybody who does statehood work knows how that goes. But I am dedicated to this city and dedicated to making it better. And not just better for us, but better for people who want to come here and call it home, better for my little girl so that when she looks around as an adult in this city, she sees a city that is diverse and that sticks up for its residents. That is what we are obligated to do. That is what we are challenged to do. But the only way we get there is with better leadership. So I ask for your vote on or before June 14th. I ask for your support, that you spread the word to neighbors, that you take a yard sign, and that if you believe that I am honest and earnest, that you spread that word. Because if folks hear from you, they will vote for us. I also ask that if you're able and so inclined, I ask that you make a donation to the campaign. We have 12 days left, and we have a lot of work still to do. We are going to cover every one of the 143 polling stations to make sure that nothing in this election is left to chance. So I appreciate you taking the time to come, and I look forward to any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. So,
I have a question.
yeah, Kurt.
Can you just name a policy or two that you think would help help draw the two cities you described together, particularly help draw the poor, disadvantaged people? I mean, what would a policy, something that's not being done, what could be done that would lessen that divide?
So let's just take one example, which is affordable and stable housing. So no matter what we do inside, you know, the classrooms or anywhere else, if people don't have stable housing, they can't stick around in the city. So so let's talk about that as one issue. You know, we all know that affordable housing is a tremendous and crippling issue here in the city. So one thing we have to do is hold developers accountable. So, you know, everybody knows that in DC we have good laws on the books that requires building affordable housing units every time you do new development. But routinely, we give a pass to developers and then they continue to do more work in the city. I'm going to settle expectations and let developers know, look, if you build affordable housing as you are supposed to, you will always have a very strong champion in me. But if you don't, then I will oppose you doing future work because we need it. I'm going to protect the existing stock of affordable housing because we have a lot of bad practices that are really ruining affordable housing here in the city. And an example, it's about 2 blocks from me, right on Kennedy Street in Northwest. There was a building where the owners had not touched the building in years. I found out because one of my neighbors called me and said DCRA, which is a DC government agency, was evicting tenants from this building because it wasn't up to code. So as a neighbor and civic association president, not as a candidate, I went into that building to see what was going on. I found a building that had not been touched in years. There was no running water, there was no heat, there was no electricity. And in that building, I saw school books, I saw kids' clothes, I saw every indication, every evidence that there were families struggling to make it in that building. Now, the same day that they were evicted by DC government, the owners of the building, who had not touched that building in years, sent out an appraiser so that they could see how they could sell it and turn it into a luxury apartment, a luxury condo. There will be no consequence for how they treated those residents. So we have to hold people accountable. But in a big scope picture, building affordable housing, rezoning our major underperforming corridors. So think Georgia Avenue, Rhode Island Avenue, Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, to add residential units above the 1-story commercial space. Focusing, it will be mixed income, but if we have a focus on building affordable housing, then what we have are miles of land in DC where we can add housing pretty immediately. And not only is that going to help our need for affordable housing, but we're also going to add density that's going to feed into the commercial spaces and diversify them, because right now they are almost entirely liquor stores and carryouts. I know it unfortunately all too well because I live off of Georgia Avenue. Finally, I want to take our older commercial office buildings downtown, the ones that have lost most of their tenants to the new developments like City Center. I want to convert those into residential buildings. That is actually going to take the strain off of our commercial leasing market. It's going to help the building owners, right, because they don't have paying tenants right now. And of course, it's going to mean affordable housing for people who need it in a part of our city that is metro accessible. So these are housing units where you actually won't need a car to get around. So that's one example of bridging that divide and helping people who are being left behind and priced out of the city.
The funding come, like for the commercial buildings downtown, you want to spend money in converting to residences. Where does that money come from?
So the building owners are now incentivized to do something. So it may be some type of cost share with the DC government, which is all right because we are investing money in affordable housing, but they will put in a lot of the money because they're hamstrung right now. They don't have paying tenants. They can't get new commercial tenants unless they rehab the building, and they can't rehab the building unless they get new tenants. So they are actually incentivized to do it. I should note that these are not pie in the sky ideas. You know, with a policy background, I'm more interested in policies that work than things that sound good. So I've vetted these with developers and building owners to ask them if these are ideas that work. And they say, yes, they are, but we need somebody in the government to take the lead, to take a leadership role in getting this done.
Any other questions? Yeah, yes.
What are your thoughts on the shutting down of DC General and the whole Mayor Bowser's plan of the homeless shelters and putting them across the city? What are your thoughts in general and specifically on her proposed plan, or what the council's about?
Perfect. Now, can I assume as a starting point that there's no argument about the urgency to close DC General? Are we all on the same page there?
Yeah.
All right. My father was born in that building, and it was not built to be a homeless shelter, nor is it serving people very well. I think the idea, the framework of the idea was spot on. Building smaller shelters in every single ward of the city. There is no alternative to it. So I applaud the mayor for making that a priority. I applaud the council for improving greatly that plan. It is so important that we own those buildings. The majority of them under the original plan that would have had leases that ended between 15 and 20 years from now, the value of those lands would have gone up so much that either we couldn't afford to renew the leases or they would not renew the leases. So we would have been left in 15 to 20 years with virtually no emergency shelter beds in the city. So I think that the council's improvement went a very long way. I still have some concerns about the locations. the main thing I want to see is that these shelters have access to transportation, because as we know, it's folks are homeless not just because they need a roof. Many of them need job training, they need daycare, they need mental health services, and so there has to be access to those services as well. So we have to make sure that that happens.
As a parent of a 2-year-old living in the city, starting to face future education.
Don't leave.
And we see a lot of people that basically is similar to other places that I've lived, where your child reaches a certain age and then you go out into the suburbs.
Yeah.
What do you see as the challenges of the school system here, and some policy positions to make that go forward?
So the challenge is that we are, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, people are finding that they want to stay in DC. So we have parents in DC who are ready to roll up their sleeves and do work to improve their neighborhood schools, but there has to be reciprocity from DCPS, from the DC government. Parents have to be full-time advocates. You gotta learn the DCPS budget cycle. You have to understand how the Department of General Services does construction. You have to show up for hearings in the middle of the day. It requires so much of parents to invest in and to work with DCPS, and it just can't be that difficult. So what we have to have on the council are people who are not going to be apologists for DCPS, who are not just going to parrot back to you the same thing that DCPS told you, but who are going to be strong advocates for parents. I want the parents, so in my neighborhood, when we moved into our neighborhood at Brightwood Park 5 years ago, there were no babies, none whatsoever. Then one of my neighbors had babies, and look, the floodgates were open. Everybody in our neighborhood is now having kids. So this is great that we have a strong group of parents who are ready to send their kids to the schools, but there has to be a partnership with DCPS that said, we're going to work with you to make sure that the schools are modernized, that the curriculum is strong enough, that there's diversity in these schools, and that the things that parents are saying to us that they want, that we are getting them done. DCPS right now it's not very nimble. So what we see in the charter schools is that they look for gaps. They look at things that that parents are looking for, whether they are international baccalaureate programs, or extended school day or school year, or dual language programs, and they're providing those. But DCPS is giving us more of a one-size-fits-all approach, which just isn't going to work. So I think that the best way to cut into that is to restore powers to our school board so that we have more localized accountability. Now the argument back is that, well, the school board, it used to have authority before mayoral control, and it didn't go so well for schools. But I would remind folks that the council at that time wasn't performing too great either, and we didn't get rid of the council. So it is worth looking at to make sure that there's local accountability so that parents feel like they have a voice in the direction of the schools. The other thing I do want to note, though, is that no matter what we do in terms of school modernization or education reform, we still have to address, as a part of improving educational outcomes in this city, job security and housing stability. Because if you took every school in Ward 3, teachers, schools and all, and plopped them in the middle of Ward 7, you still wouldn't see the same outcomes that you see in Ward 3. Because you still don't have enough parents who have careers, who have stable housing, who have the resources to be full-time advocates for their kids. So we have to focus in our efforts on education, not just in what's happening in the 8 hours a day that kids are in school, but what's happening in the 12 hours a day that they're not in school, and the 4 years before they enter the school building. We have to add support systems there to really add stability. So we have a lot of work to do. It only happens if we have a strong council who continues to do aggressive oversight over DCPS. If we do that, I think parents are here to work with us. I think they're ready to roll up their sleeves, and we're going to have a tremendous school system in the coming years as long as we do that. But if we don't, we're going to continue to see parents flee to the suburbs.